So we're going to start, okay?
No, perfect. Let's go for it.
Okay, James, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So my name's James De Lacey, for anyone who doesn't know. I've spent most of my S&C career within rugby union and rugby league. Coaching's been my only real job. I started at the age of 14 coaching tennis. That was my first job, and it's pretty much my only real job I've ever actually had through my life now. But most recently, I was with Romania Rugby as their head S&C with the 15s and 7s. Before that, I was a couple of years in the United States with Austin Rugby. So we had the first year of Major League Rugby, and then we had the pilot year. And then before that, I was with our New Zealand women's rugby league team, our Kiwi Ferns. And then prior to that, my first professional rugby gig was in Romania as well, but with a professional club there. So been around a little bit, around the world a bit, and seen a few things. And here I am now.
Good. Are you holding the cell phone with your hands?
Yep, I'm holding the stick because I don't understand the iPhone doesn't have very good sound, so it's a little better when it's closer to me.
I'm sorry, man.
It's all good. Why is it wobbling?
What?
Is it moving a lot?
No. I just thought that it's okay. Everything's okay. So you just said that you work with a lot of like rugby team.
Yep.
So as a strength coach, I'm curious about like there's a lot of body contact, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you train like these type of things? How do you train to let your athlete to be able to take the hit?
Yeah, a lot of the conditioning for contact is actually done in the contact anyway.
Yeah.
So I mean, like a lot of the tackle technique, a lot of the wrestle drills you'll do will prepare them for that contact. But at the same time, having some muscle mass helps. You know, they call it body armor, right?
Yeah.
When you've got some muscle mass on you, so that's almost like a protective mechanism. Obviously, if you're training, you know, somewhat heavy enough, you're going to develop, you know, more dense bones and things like that too, which will help. Yeah. So yeah, but like obviously the really skinny guys, yeah, they can be more prone to obviously contact injuries just because. Not because they're skinny, but because they have to run against bigger guys. If it was all skinny guys, it would be a different story. So most of it comes down to really the technical aspects of contact and then doing a lot of the wrestling stuff body to body. And I think a lot of at some clubs and some teams they kind of miss out on this because through the preseason they don't do contact because obviously it's seen as something that we got to wait till we're closer to the season because if we do contact now, guys can get injured. They need to be prepared, but they don't do anything to prepare. And then they go randomly full contact like a few weeks before the season, you know? So there's a lot of preparation involved in that.
Yeah. So do you think bilateral squat or like unilateral squat, that helps? Like if I do like heavy bilateral squat, that helps with the body to prepare for the contact?
Yeah, I don't think it's a certain exercise per se. I think like to help take hits, it's, you know, mainly upper body armor you're going to need. Obviously, with the lower body strength and power, it's going to help you when you're you know in contact and on the field and things like that. So obviously, it's a holistic approach, but yeah, the upper body mass is what's going to most of the time help save you.
Good. So I heard another podcast you did with like Science for Sports. Right?
Yep.
You talk about like max strength. I was interested in that topic. So can you tell everybody about this kind of topic? Like how much max strength is enough?
Yeah.
And how often should we train max strength for field-based athlete?
Yeah. So this kind of I guess this discussion came about. I was talking to Matt, who was the podcast host. We were actually talking about it because he just kind of ran his own little case study with his athletes where they basically removed maximum strength out since February, and they're seeing big gains in a lot of their performance. And so it came about kind of from that discussion on the idea, and I've been writing a little bit about this through various blog posts and stuff that I've done and things like that, about almost like the overemphasis or the over-reliance on maximal strength, specifically within sports like non-strength sports. Obviously in strength sports, maximal strength is the sport. When you're not in a strength sport, maximal strength, obviously being strong has importance. For example, stronger athletes generally are more resilient to injury and can generally handle more workloads, which are a couple of benefits. And then what's often said is strength underpins a lot of other qualities to a certain degree. So generally, the stronger you are, the more potential you can have to produce a lot of force in a short time period, right? Because obviously in sport, we're limited by time. We don't have, say, the time a powerlifter has to grind up a squat. We have, less than 250 milliseconds when sprinting to hit the ground and go. So we have that potential to be stronger, obviously to a certain degree. Now, in terms of overemphasizing maximal strength, I'm talking about when I say overemphasizing maximal strength, I mean, when you're in the gym, you're doing strength hypertrophy, maybe a little bit of power, but everything else in the program isn't built around speed, power, things like that. So maybe you're in the gym 3-4 times a week, and then you're doing your conditioning, but you're not doing a lot of speed training and a lot of other power work. And when you overemphasize the strength training, which you often see, you often actually see this a lot in American college sports. They have a big affinity with, I guess you say, powerlifting, West Side weightlifting. You get these adaptations that are essentially unfavorable to speed. So just like how when you develop energy systems, you have aerobic energy system development and anaerobic energy system development, and they're kind of almost opposite ends of the spectrum. You train one, you target one, and you kind of take away from the other over time.
Yeah.
So similar things happen when you're training maximal strength. You're getting stronger, but you're developing adaptations that aren't conducive to being fast. So, for example, we know that elite sprinters can basically relax their muscles faster during activity than less elite sprinters. The problem with if you're overemphasizing maximal strength, you're training muscle activation through a whole range of motion. So if you're deep squatting, you're training prime mover activation through that whole range of motion. It's never switching on and off. So you start to develop, if you're involved in anything anything, combat sports, whatever, and you have the big muscle-bound guy come in who's only really done bodybuilding, and they say, he comes in and he punches like he's a fridge, or he's a super stiff person, and they go, oh, it's because you're muscle-bound. Well, it's not likely because he's muscle-bound. It's because all he's done is trained hypertrophy and maximal strength to the point where he can't relax the muscles. They say that, they often say amateur fighters are tense. And it comes down to, a lot of it's a skill, but you'll see it more so in heavily muscly developed people running, throwing strikes, all that stuff. You'll see that tension in there. And then you have other adaptations like you have co-contractions around joints when you're doing certain activities. So it's basically a protective mechanism. So if you are squatting a lot of weight, you're going to have co-contractions around the hip, meaning, say, muscles around both sides of that joint will contract at the same time. But the only problem is, while it's safe, it's not conducive for speed. So when you're looking at speed, you're looking at the antagonist muscle relaxing. So these are just a couple of things. Obviously, that with the maximal strength, it's also, there's a coordinative element to it. So I could be really strong at squatting, but I might not be strong in another activity, even though it involves the lower body.
Yeah.
So being strong for running or sprinting is going to be different than being strong deep squatting. Yeah. And that's not to say that, oh, I'm not going to do any deep squats then because it's completely different. Obviously there's a time and place to do pretty much anything. But the idea that I'm going to get my squat from 300, 400 pounds to 500 pounds, and now I'm going to be faster. And to get there, I need to take out something out from the program, or I need to spend a lot of time doing it, probably isn't going to be conducive to being faster. And then in terms of how much maximal strength we can do, or we should do, I think it's much less than we think. And I think we don't need to probably be as strong as we think. I guess the general standards would be like, what do they say? 1.5 bodyweight bench, 2 times bodyweight squat, 2.5 bodyweight deadlift would be like the generic standard for being strong. I don't even think you need to go that far, because I think, again, that depends how we define strong. If we can be strong, again, if we can be strong in those lifts, but our foot and ankle can't handle the loads that are going to go through it when we, do whatever else, and it doesn't really matter. And then in terms of how much maximal strength, well, the thing is, if we define training maximal strength as anything, say 85% and up, I mean, sure, you could even go like 80% and up and you're still going to train maximal strength. Maximal strength isn't just developed and training at those high intensities, Anything, when you think holistically, anything that you do, even at those lower intensities, is going to make you stronger.
Yeah.
Like, for example, most powerlifting programs, sit anywhere between maybe 60, 65% and up to 80, 85%. And you'll do the majority of your work in that rep range to prepare you to lift maximally on the platform. You won't even go near 90% plus within one of those programs. So things that you do, under that are going to influence it. Then also the things you might do on the field. For example, sprinting creates a lot of body tension, a lot of ground reaction forces coming from the ground back up to you, and yet that you have to be able to handle. And it's very high output, very neural as well. So you're going to get gains just from that too. So yeah, it's a holistic thing where it's not just, I do maximal strength, so we're going to get stronger. I don't do maximal strength, so I'm not going to get stronger. It's more like, what else do you do outside of it that will influence what you do?
Yeah.
In a long-winded way.
Yeah. I forgot. There's a saying. I forgot who said it. It's like, lifting heavy doesn't really make you faster, but if you sprint faster, it makes you stronger. Right?
Yep. I think I've read or heard that somewhere.
Yeah. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into this. Like, how would you program for like your session? Like, in season, off season, like the whole year wise, how do you periodize? Like, when do you do like hypertrophy? When do you do like max strength? And when do you do like more sprinting? And or like, yeah.
So I try not to think of it as blocks. So I don't say we're doing a hypertrophy block now for 4 weeks of preseason, and then now I'm doing 4 weeks of maximum strength and then 4 weeks of power. I take a vertical integration approach where I want to touch on everything, but I'll emphasize certain things throughout. Most players anyway, like, they're not that well developed in the gym. They're really good athletes on the field. They're really good rugby players. But if you actually take them in a gym to lift, even if they have some training years behind them, they're still pretty new. You can almost get away with, you can get away with some pretty basic and stuff. As long as you're consistent, you're going to make progress. So I think of it as a vertical integration approach where I kind of touch on everything, but I'll emphasize certain things. So for example, the beginning of preseason, it will be more extensive style plyometrics and throws. So it might be like jump, plyo circuits, quite a few reps. Same thing with throws, extensive throws with the medicine ball, all to prepare them for later on. And then as we get into the program, it might be slightly lower percentages, and we'll do a little more volume in that time. So you could say it's hypertrophy as such, but it's still touching on the strength side too. And as we go through the preseason, we start to turn those extensive jumps and plyos and throws into more intensive variations. So now we're looking for maximal power. And then with the actual main part of the session as well, we may get a little heavier with some of the lifts, and the volume will start to drop a little too there. So it's almost just like I guess you could say, an inverse between those power exercises and the strength exercises. Then as we get through the season, we can either carry on doing that, or you can even just start complexing things, because one, it saves time, being able to say squat and then do your jumps. And two, obviously you can get some kind of post-activation potentiation effect through that, since you haven't really touched it going into the season. And yeah, same thing. It's just about manipulating the volumes. In season, it's more about just getting the work done. And because all that matters is the game. The guys are good for the game. As long as you're doing something each week and you build it and just have that consistency, like the sets and reps don't really matter unless you're doing something crazy and doing something stupid like 10 sets of 10 and the guys can't walk, you know. If you're sensible, say you're doing 3 sets of 3 or 4, you know, whatever it is you're doing, and then you're doing 3 to 4 sets of, say, 3 to 5 jumps or whatever it is, and you do that, say, each week, and maybe you vary the intensity a little bit, or maybe you vary the reps just a little bit throughout, and then next cycle you maybe progress those jumps to more intense jumping variations. For example, if you went from, let's say you went from box jumps and now you want some quick response jumps, you went to say hurdle hops or something like that, that's an easy progression, but it's not going to take too much out of the athlete. So through the season, it's just more about consistency than anything. I don't think you need to do too much special. But generally, my most intense periods of, I guess you could say, prioritizing that maximal power output will be at the end of preseason, just before we head into the season, and then we can kind of to change things as we go into the season.
So does that mean like in preseason you do like quarter squat, heavy mid-thigh pull in like at the end of preseason, and during the season it's more like maintaining stuff, like more maybe like plyo a little bit more, heavy lifting a little bit less?
Yeah, so end of preseason, yeah, I'll definitely run into some quarter squat stuff and stuff off the pins. It could be single leg. It's almost like that would be kind of like your most specific in terms of what you're trying to get out of it. In season, we can usually cycle between the two. So maybe it's like some general stuff. I don't want to call it maintaining because you're never really just trying to maintain. You're still trying to, you know, just make incremental gains throughout. But you might do, say, a couple of cycles that are more general. And then you might do a cycle that's geared towards what you did in the preseason, just to give them that little bit of extra, you could say, stimulus, and then kind of come back out of it and just repeat.
Sure.
And it's just, yeah, again, it's just being consistent with it. Like,
yeah.
Like I've seen progress. Like, I honestly don't think it matters too much what you actually do, as long as you're just doing something every week.
Yeah,
you're
that's
good
true.
to go. You know, like as long as you're not completely fucking them up.
Yeah.
Doing something crazy, you're going to be good.
Yeah, that's true, man. So, like, I don't know how the season works for rugby. Is it like there's a game for every week? There's only one game? Okay.
Yeah, generally, one game a week. So usually it's like usually on a Saturday, but with the professional game, it can be Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, depending on the league you're in.
Okay, and is there like practice like exhausting or something like that?
In terms of on the field?
Yeah.
So it's gonna depend on the day.
Okay.
So if we're talking a general week plan, I like to view it as Monday is like, say you played a game on Saturday.
Yeah.
Sunday off.
Yeah.
Completely. They just do whatever they need to do, get away from rugby. Monday coming is like a low day. So Monday's almost like a get back into the rhythm of training.
Yeah.
So I find that so Mondays are usually often used as, especially in the preseason, as like, okay, that's our hardest day because they've come off the weekend, they're fresh. We're going to make Monday, you know, speed, contact, whatever. But not everyone responds well to having days off. So a lot of athletes will come in flat. It's almost like you take them out of the rhythm of training. So I'd rather have Monday, put them back in the rhythm of training. We do something where it's like easy bodybuilding stuff that I can't touch, that I don't have time to touch on during the week when we do our more like high output work. Easy aerobic running, for example, tempo running. And then it'll be like, in terms of the actual rugby itself, it'll be easier rugby to the point where it's more rest, lower intensity, more kind of learning based. And then Tuesday is like the big day. That's like where I want to cover. I want them to touch max velocity at least once or twice. Usually a defense day where we'll do contact, so that'll be your actual contact day too, because it's the furthest from the Saturday. And it'll be the heavy lower body work too. So you're basically chucking everything, all the hardest things into that one day. Then usually I like to take Wednesday off after that. Thursday kind of breaks the rule of the day off, then coming into a higher day. So Thursday again will be another more intense day, but more towards rugby attack rather than defense. And then heavier upper body, so you give the legs a break. And then Friday, usually have your captain's run, and then Saturday you'll play.
Sure. So, you mentioned on like Tuesday, there's like big day, right? And you said that you're going to work on max velocity. Interesting thing is that why max velocity instead of like acceleration?
Because that's pretty much the only time that's, I wouldn't say, well, not the only time. You can touch on it Thursday too. But you need enough, you could say, regular exposures to that maximum velocity just for general hamstring health, and also to develop speed. So you can kind of touch that area. But mainly it's just the fact that you want to keep that load there. So if you don't sprint at all, and then you go into game and you're having to sprint, 100-meter runaway try, you're going to be at a higher risk of injuring yourself there because you haven't trained that ability to reach those intensities within training. So it's more of like I guess you could say, I make you feel happy and okay that things are going to be most likely okay regarding hamstring injuries, being able to hit maximum velocity. But that doesn't mean that you're not touching acceleration too. To get to maximum velocity, you have to accelerate.
Yeah.
So you're still touching on it. You're kind of encompassing everything in one.
Sure. So, like in the professional athletes, there's like a lot of going on, right? A lot of practice. So how do you monitor fatigue?
The easiest way, I believe, to monitor fatigue is literally just walk into the room when all your athletes are there. And if it's quiet, all your guys are effed and you need to back off. That's like the most telltale sign is when your players are chirpy and loud, everything's all good. When you walk in, no one's talking, then you need to start making changes. You can go through wellness questionnaires and subjective RP and stuff. So obviously I've used a lot of that, but subjective RP doesn't, in my view and experience, it doesn't give enough actionable data to actually do anything with. Like, I've had guys with high training loads going week and on the game, but they come to training and they tell you they're fine, everything's good. It's like, cool, carry on then. I'm not going to pull them out because, a subjective number tells me that these arbitrary units are too high. And then same thing with the wellness. The wellness is more of a conversation starter. So if guys put in their wellness questionnaire that, they're not feeling so great, then I can go talk to them, etc. And then that's another way of just monitoring, your players' well-being. I've used jump monitoring as well at the start of the week, but it was with just a jump mat. So it only gave jump height, so it wasn't really sensitive to, wasn't very sensitive to change in fatigue. So yeah, for me, if you talk to the players, you get a pretty good idea of how the team is tracking overall. And just that, when you walk into a room and it's silent, then you need to make changes. And often like people use the monitoring stuff to, I wouldn't say predict, but almost like put in certain periods where, okay, we're going to deload here, we need to back off here, kind of predicting where they're going to do it based on the loads that they're giving. But I mean, professional sport is, everything's all over. There's so many unknowns that sometimes you just have to be reactive to it. And just, if guys aren't, are coming in and they're quiet like that, then, for that session, you might change your warm up, play some games. You might take out some of the exercises or sets during your gym session, things like that. Like these are all small changes you can make to make sure then they can get through that session all good. And then the following day, they can be good too.
Okay. Last question, and I'm going to let you go, okay?
All right.
Okay. So you mentioned that you've been coaching since 14, right? 14 years old, right?
Yep.
So there's like, I don't know, is there like anything you think is most important for like coaches to bond with athletes or to build a relationship with the coaching staff?
In terms of what they can do to do it, or?
I mean, there's like strength training or like strength and conditioning. It's kind of like boring stuff, right? You can't really do anything fancy like the Instagram post, right? And the athletes always look at those kind of stuff, and the coaching staff always look like those kind of stuff. So how do you make them to trust you? Or how do you make the coaches staff to like trust what you're doing and trust the process?
Yeah. I guess firstly, the buy-in with athletes, like, for me, it's just been treating athletes like you would treat anyone else. Like, I don't want to say the word friend, but I want to say like having athletes, like when you get on a good enough level with athletes, for example, if you're getting invited to their house for, you know, whatever event or dinner and things like that, when you can build a relationship that's deeper than just, you know, the sets and reps that you're doing at the gym, the buy-in becomes easy because you've connected with them at a level that's not just, oh, you're a professional athlete in training, you know. Can you talk to them about what happened on last night's Netflix show? Can you talk to them about, you know, what's happening with their family? Different things like that. And if you can do that with the athlete, then, you know, they trust you there. They're going to trust you with the training. That becomes pretty, it's almost like synonymous. With coaches and staff, it can be a little more difficult. So it depends on the coach. Some coaches you just can't win. Like sometimes you just can't win, and you're just going to have to compromise. That's just unfortunately the way it is. I've had my fair share of experiences like that. Some coaches are open to pretty much anything, which is even better. But often it's just the results that you can bring. So if you're able to track your data and show improvements and show things are working, and the coach can see, you know, these things playing out on the field, that's an easy win. And I think what many SNCs, like you say, even can do even better is involving the coaches more on the field with what you're doing too. So for example, I don't mean like them just standing there watching. Like when you plan your sessions, for example, if I'm doing a warm-up for contact for a defense session, I've got my own general wrestle drills and things like that I want to do. But if I can bring the defense coach in to help me, to be like, look, I want you to help coach, basically tackle tech through this. We're going to do blah, blah, blah. And get them to help design the drills that, you know, you want. These are the outcomes that you want. They can help design the technical side of it. Then you've got buy-in from both, just like that. Because you're doing, say, for example, if you're doing some kind of combat conditioning, and these are the, you know, the time you want them to work and the time you want them to rest. But, you know, you're reinforcing good habits of technical contact. Then the defense coach can be in there to help coach it while you're getting the conditioning out of it that you want. And that's an easy win right there. Same thing with, for example, if you're doing agility, eventually once you've done all the preparation, so you've done all your closed chain stuff and extensive work, once you eventually get into these large drills, you can have the backs coach or the attacking coach essentially help you design evasion drills based on, you know, his philosophy of attack or whatever they're doing. But you can still get your maximum speed, you get your agility work done, but then with the help of the head coach or with one of the coaches there. And that becomes, now you don't have the S&C guy and the coach doing his thing. You have both of them together doing the thing together, you know, working towards that same goal. But you both get out of it what you want. Plus, the coach gets more time doing what he wants with the players too. So there's like a win-win there.
Thanks, man. The content was really good.
Oh, cheers, man. I try.
Thanks. I'm gonna like maybe later this week or next week, I'm gonna do an episode and I'm gonna translate all this into Chinese.
Oh, damn.
It's okay, but
be a little while to type out.
It's okay, but the content was like really good. Thanks, man.
Oh, thank you. Anytime, man. Anytime.
So can you tell like everybody about your future, and if there's any coaches want to like reach out to you, where can they find you?
Okay, so you can find me on this Instagram, I guess, at JDeLacey90. I've got Twitter at JDeLacey01. That's I kind of use. Other than that, I'm actually running a website now in combat sports just because I really love combat sports and participating in it on the strength conditioning side. So sweetscienceoffighting.com is that one. Other than that, my future, it's rather uncertain at the moment. I'm not too sure, to be honest, whether I want to go back into professional sport or do my own thing. The wife and I think we're going to move back to the United States just because we loved it so much over there.
Okay.
So we'll see. But I guess it's a to be, to be confirmed.
Okay.
With what's going to happen in the future.
Okay. Thanks, man. Keep in touch, okay?
Cheers, Eric. Thank you.
Stay safe.
Cheers.
See you. Okay, that's all for today. Thanks.